Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name is Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. Today I'm filming a wrap up for the month of June. I had a really good reading month in June and I read 9 books, which for some booktubers is just like a normal month, but 9 books is really good for me and I really enjoyed the vast majority, so a really good month. So one thing that I was really pleased about in June is that I always had like 8 books on the go on my Goodreads, and I was only actually ever reading sort of 2 of them, but the others were sort of just ones that I've sort of started and put down, and I was just in the mood to do a bit of like wrapping some of those up last month. So I finished 2 of them. I'm making steady progress with the 3rd, 4th and 5th, so that's good. So the first one that I finished that's been on my currently reading for ages was Are Women on the Ground, Arab Women Reporting from the Arab World, but edited by Zahra Hankir. So I've mentioned this a few times before. This is a collection of essays written by Arab women journalists about their life as journalists, about living in the Middle East, about what it's been like for the Arab Spring. A lot of it's about the Arab Spring, but it's also about women's rights, how it is working as a woman in the field of journalism, and it's really, really good. But I think you can't read it all in one go. One, because it's quite traumatic, but I also think with any essay collection you lose some of the nuance of the essays if you just read through them all one after the other. I think you need to like read 1 or 2 and then have a little break and think about them. That's just what I feel anyway. So this was an excellent book, but quite a traumatic read. And then the second one that I finished, which has been on my currently reading for a while, is a parenting book. The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read and Your Children Will Be Glad You Did by Phillipa. So I came across this book because I heard Phillipa interviewed by Dr. Chatterjee, and I thought she sounded really good, really sensible, and like I enjoyed what she was talking about. So I bought this book, and the sections that I enjoyed a lot and got a lot out of were the sections on feelings and behaviour, because they're the kind of tricky bits, I think, of the age children I've got. And I have definitely incorporated what I've read into my sort of day-to-day parenting and managing of difficult behaviours. So I found that really helpful. What I would say is that a lot of this book is about pregnancy and babies, and I am done with that part now. So I would have devoured those parts when I was pregnant or had little babies, but they're kind of obviously in the past, those bits for me now. So I found this sort of older children stuff the best, but that was only sort of those 2 sections. But I definitely think I'll refer back to this again, because I really thought the examples that were given were really good, and the help in sort of interpreting children's feelings and helping them through the difficult feelings, which are difficult for us too, and was really worthwhile. So they're the 2 that I got off my currently reading shelf. Then I read 2 ebooks. So the first one was one for the Reading Women Challenge, and it was called Grace After Midnight by Felicia, Snoop, Pearson. And this met the prompt of about incarceration. So Felicia Pearson was born in Baltimore, and her mum was addicted to crack, so she was really underweight when she was born. They didn't think she'd survive. She was taken into care and adopted as a baby, and the people who she was raised by, she refers to as her parents. And it's just about like her life growing up in a really tough neighborhood, about like becoming a drug dealer. She killed a woman accidentally, and she ended up in prison, and then she ended up finally being in the TV show The Wire, which is like an amazing drama series from about, 15-20 years ago, but it's still very relevant. And it's about, basically, she's sort of playing a character which is really similar to herself and she's even got the same name in The Wire. So she's kind of turned her life around and her fortune around, and it's really good. And one thing I really liked about this book is it's kind of, she's talking a lot about, you know, the the difficulty of life. And then she also has these premonitions in dreams fairly regularly about events that then do happen. And I really liked how she sort of brought that into it, and how she talked about how she sort of had some spiritual experiences in prison. And that's why the book's called Grace After Midnight, after one of the experiences that she had. So I really enjoyed that aspect. I read this in one day, and I gave it 3 stars. So it was good. Yes, so that's that one. And then I also read The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevado. This met the prompt of a YA book by a Latinx author for the Reading Women Challenge. This book I went in with higher hopes because a lot of people really loved this book, and I really enjoyed it. Like, I think I gave it 3.5 stars, but I didn't love it as much as everyone else, and I just didn't connect with the main character as much as I wanted to. I don't know why, but this book did really well. So our protagonist, whose name I'm really sorry but I can't remember, Ziamara, that's her name, Ziamara. So she is a teenager. She is living with super strict parents. Like, her mum is so strict and really, really religious. And like, even the fact that she is curvy, her mum sees as like a sin, because she thinks it's being associated with being like promiscuous. And her mum punishes her for things by getting her to like pray kneeling on dry rice that hurts her knees. And she can't be free to express herself or to even do the things she wants to do. Like, she really wants to go to this poetry club after school, but her mum's making her go to these Bible study classes after school, so she can't even like do something simple like go to a poetry club. And she likes a boy, and there's no way that she'll be able to ever like talk to her mum about it because she's so strict and stuff. So I just felt she was so trapped by this, like, such a strict upbringing and such this kind of really hard Catholicism. She was just trapped by it, and she was like getting her feelings out by writing her poetry and all of that stuff I love, but I just really wanted to connect with her a bit more. I didn't feel like I got to quite know her enough. And I definitely would like to try some more by Elizabeth Acevedo, because I'd like to read Clap When You Land, definitely. But yeah, I was just a tiny bit disappointed that I didn't love it as much as other people did. So they're the ebooks, and then I have physical books that I read. So the first one met one of the Pop Sugar Challenge prompts of In a Different Format to Normal. I read Glasstown by Isabel Greenberg, which was really, really kindly sent to me by Heather from Soggy Expat Book Nerd. So this is about the Bronte family, so the 3 sisters and brother, who create this imaginary world, and 2 of the sisters create one imaginary world, and one of the brothers and another sister sort of diverge their world off. And it's just about how the worlds kind of come to life for them. And so the artwork is in this sort of colour palette of sort of browns and oranges and yellows and greys and blacks. So I just find it, like, this is embarrassing. This is the first ever graphic novel that I've read. I read it all in one night and I really enjoyed it. Like, I would definitely read more graphic novels now. But it just is incredible to me, like, how much time it must have taken for Isabel Greenberg to draw like every single one of these pictures, as well as come up with the story. It just blows my mind. And the cover is so beautiful. It's this beautiful hardback book, which I just really, really enjoyed it. I'd really recommend it. I also I'm reading, I haven't actually done a video about this, but I'm reading my favourite booktubers' favourite books of 2020, and Lauren from Lauren and the Books, this is one of her favourites of the year, so that ticks off that prompt as well. Then I read Bluebed by Attica Locke. So this is a crime thriller. Well, not really a thriller, I'd say it's more of a crime book than a thriller. And I went on a lovely haul in Waterstones, and I just had a little list of because I've got a massive Amazon wish list, and I condensed it into like a few that I really, really wanted to put on my Waterstones list, so that when I went round Waterstones, I could actually pick what I wanted with my last of my Christmas money. Because all the time I go in Waterstones, I think, oh God, what was it that I really wanted? And I can't think. I really wanted this. I've wanted to read this for ages. So I picked this up and read it. So this is about a black Texas Ranger called Darren Matthews. And he is investigating a crime where in a town in rural Texas, a black man and a white girl have been found. Their bodies have been found. The black man is found first, then the white girl. And it's a mystery of like, are these murders connected? Like the locals are quite, there's a lot about the Texas Aryan Brotherhood, which is really, really scary. In the book, and also how the community reacts to Darren, because he's black and he's investigating, and he's not given the respect that he deserves, as that his job decrees he should have from a lot of the white community. And the racial divisions in this book is so like shocking to me, like because it just seems like it's a rural community, it's a very small town, and there's such division between white and black in the town, and which is I find really shocking. And it was an eye-opener, and the Aryan Brotherhood just scares the hell out of me, so it's like just vile. And this is their first in a series of books, so there's the next one's called Heaven My Home, which I will definitely read because I really enjoyed this one. I did guess, like I did spot an inconsistency in somebody's story, which made me think, okay, that person's involved in these murders, and I was right. But, you know, I don't think it took a genius to work that out. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I then read another book, which has been beloved on BookTube. I picked this one because I picked 3 books out of my TBR jar, and I thought, of the 3, I'll just choose one of them to read. And the one I chose was The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This is a huge book. I think it's nearly 700 pages. And that was probably one of the reasons I hadn't read it yet. This is being talked about on BookTube a lot, and everybody loves it. So it follows a guy called Cyril Avery, who we start following him. He starts narrating the book while he's still in utero, when his mum is pregnant. We know that his mum has been pregnant as a teenager. We don't know by whom or how. And this book, so I have to say this, I don't want to cause any offence to anybody, but I read 3 books in this month about Catholicism, and it is the worst aspect of Catholicism, and it made me just so angry, like so angry. So the first one was obviously The Poet X. I was just really angry with the way that Zahra was treated, you know, because of the principles of, you know, how religion had been taken to an extreme. This one is set in Ireland, and how it starts is to say 16-year-old girl, Catherine, yeah. She is basically in church with her family. Her parents have told her priest, who's like basically runs the whole community, that she's pregnant. The priest has got 2 illegitimate children, which is fine because the men never get punished in this situation. And he makes her stand up, come to the front of the church, and denounces her as a whore in front of her whole community. Then literally grabs her by her hair and drags her out, throws her out the church, so has never come back again. And her parents have left suitcases outside their front door so that she has to leave and never come back. And she's 16. And I just find that horrific, so horrific. They talked about, there's one character in this book who has a baby, because this is not a spoiler, this is like a little story in the book. Her dad is repeatedly raping her, and her mum knows, but she doesn't do anything. And she gets pregnant because of the incestual sexual abuse. And it's all her fault, obviously, because, again, only the women get blamed. And she goes into labour, as her parents have a bucket of water waiting in the backyard. And when she gives birth, they drown the baby. and they say to her, right, you are kicked out and never come back. And I was just like, oh my God. And all the women are like whores, and my blood was boiling. Like, I was so cross with this book. And the double standards, like the men are never ever punished because it's fine, because they're men. And like, the other thing, so that really incensed me. The other thing is that Cyril is gay, and there's a lot about violence in Ireland against the gay community as well. So it's basically like somebody's murdered by a member of their family, but then the member of the family doesn't get in trouble because being gay is a mental illness, and so it's fine, it doesn't matter. And just like unbelievably disgusting things. So I had a lot of emotions from this book, as you can probably tell. But we follow the life of Cyril anyhow, and his adopted family that he goes into, and it follows him all the way from his birth up to his death in this book. And I really, really enjoyed this. I didn't give it 5 stars. I thought I would give it 5 stars because lots of people have. I gave it 4 stars. But I really loved the book, and I loved the issues that it covered. It's probably 4.5 stars, to be honest. But be prepared. If it affects you like it affected me, it made me very indignant, very shocked and appalled, really. So that was that one. Sorry for the rant, but sometimes, you can't help it. The final physical book that I read was this one, which is Things That Are by Amy Leach, Encounters with Plants, Stars and Animals. This was a 5-star read for me. I really enjoyed this. This was a gift from my lovely friend Hannah. And this is another book of essays about different animals, plants and stars. But they're written in, I said this when I talked about this for the Reading Women's Challenge, they're written in this magical, whimsical, beautiful way that I've never read before. And just like, I don't know if I can find an example. So this is like one quote. It's quite like poetical. So this is about a star. So, on behalf of those who feel vacant and uninhabited, to whom nothing occurs, who look up day and night from chalky dust into unrefracted blackness, who watch their plush blue-headed neighbours yielding splashy gullies and snow devils and excitable vespuries and backsliding pinnipeds and heady cauliflowers and turtle centuplets and rosy squirrelfish swarming through rapture reefs, on behalf of unprofitable individuals everywhere, is the moon ordained to ever be a shabby waste of rubbled regolith? Could it never scrabble together a genius like the earth's? So it's all kind of written like that. Like, some of it's a bit more obscure than others, but I loved it. And I think it's definitely a Marmite book, because some people on Goodreads have given it 1 star, some people have given it 5 stars. So I think it's one that will either like be, no, this isn't for me, or yes, I really like this book. So that was that one. The last book, which I saved till the end because I loved it so much, is The Pill of the Stars by Emma Donoghue, which I listened to on audio. The narrator is amazing. So I think if you're thinking about this book, then I'd really recommend the audio, which I actually got from the library, which was cool. So I didn't have to use a credit for it, but it would have been well worth a credit. And I'd actually really like a hard copy. So The Pill of the Stars is set in the pandemic of the Spanish flu. And it was Emma Donoghue actually wrote it before COVID, so it wasn't like she was just I'll write a pandemic book. So it's set in Ireland again, and it features the Catholic religion again, and made me really cross with that kind of judgment again, like I said. I don't need to go into it all again, but the same kind of issues as The Heart's Invisible Furies. And basically, so it follows, our main character is a midwife, and she is working on a maternity ward for mothers who have the Spanish flu. So she has, I think, about 3 patients who are admitted, and it follows them pretty much over just a couple of days. And she has, she's in charge. She has a nursing assistant who has no medical background called Bridie, who's a real amazing character. And basically, yeah, so it follows these mums and their births and some tragedies that happen, and you just learn like how different the hospital was in 100 years ago in the last pandemic, because obviously for me the medical details were really interesting, and I really liked hearing about, like, she was really accurate in all of her medicine, and how she talked about labour and birth, and yeah, she was, spot on with her research, which was great. But I found the details like super interesting of how they managed, different kinds of things that can go wrong in labour 100 years ago, how they managed people who had pneumonia and they had no antibiotics. So all they could really do was like make poultices for people's chests, bandage their chests. They had no oxygen. They had to measure, or the nurse was measuring people's blood pressure by how their pulse felt. She'd kind of estimate whether their blood pressure was too high or too low. They had no IV fluids. It was just like crazy, like how they didn't have anything really, and all they could do was like really nurse the patients. And so even though she only had sort of 3 patients on her bay, we got to know the patients, and also how full her hands were just with those 3 patients, not like now where a nurse might have sort of 12 patients to look after. So yeah, it was like really interesting. I was so drawn into the story. Like the writing was amazing, the narration was amazing, like the time period, learning about the conditions. That's the other thing, you learn about sort of the extreme poverty in Ireland and how women were basically like baby machines. They'd like get married super early, start popping out babies. There was a line, something like women weren't worth anything, or hadn't completed their duty or something until they'd like had 12 babies for their husband, and how they're just like, please let me stop having babies. They lose their teeth because they haven't got enough calcium. It's just, yeah, like really shocking. And they go back to these tiny houses with no money, and their husbands may well be out of work. So it was a real eye-opener. I recommended this to a couple of people at work, and they read it and absolutely loved it as well. So I think I heard about The Pillar of the Stars from Emma by Drinking by Yourself. And I can't recommend this book enough. It's probably my book of the year so far. It's definitely in my top 3. Absolutely brilliant. That was it. That was my wrap up, which is actually rather longer than I thought it would be, for the month of June. So if you've read any of those, or you'd like to read any of those, let me know. If there's any that you've read by these authors that you'd recommend, or just anything that you are really enjoying this month and you want to tell me about it, go ahead. I really love hearing from you. Come and say hello. That'd be really nice. And I hope you have a lovely week, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.